This is the Bible Touchstone, just responding to Bobbo345. It's actually a fourth video response to a video series of him that he's made in a case against full preterism. I believe his initial video response was to a proponent of a form of partial preterism. But I'm affirming full preterism, though I won't have too much time to make a case for full preterism. I will be giving a rebuttal here, and this is, like I said, the fourth video. This should be the final video in which we analyze some of the arguments and appeals that Bobbo345 has given for us to make his case. And we've already seen so much dishonesty on the part of Bobbo345, and I think a lot of it is done in ignorance. I don't think that he's aware of the central theme of a lot of these passages in which he's been appealing to, and we've seen that repeatedly. I think he's supposing that the full preterists think that these verses he's been appealing to in the Old Testament were fulfilled in AD 70, where actually we've seen that context shows that it was even before the first advent of Jesus Christ in most cases here. Now some show allusions to the first century, but what Bobbo345 is doing is, since he affirms a lot of these fulfillments, or all these fulfillments he's appealing to, are so far removed in proximity to the time in which the prophecies were given, that when language is used, such as at hand, here's an example, Joel chapter 1 verse 15, Alas for the day of the Lord is at hand, and for the destruction from the Almighty shall it come. Because it uses the word at hand in the Old Testament, and it must mean at least a few hundred years, then at hand doesn't mean at hand. It means a long period of time, like hundreds of years. And so when the preterists read the New Testament, in which at hand is used, then they posit that at hand must mean a shorter period than hundreds of years. So he's saying that full preterists are inconsistent, or not using the terms of how these prophecies are used in the Old Testament. And that probably makes sense, because the Old Testament, it was, longer. But the thing is, we've seen that it makes a weaker case for his argument. He's been denying the conjunct. The implications of his affirmations are also weakened by his argument, and he's making a better case for full preterism in a lot of these cases. In this case, where at hand is used in Joel chapter 1, Jesus also says things that were to be at hand. He says the kingdom is at hand and that those should repent. He also says that there would be a generation when all things that would be fulfilled, including his return, the destruction of the temple, and the end of the age. But here we see there's a difference between how at hand is used in Joel than it is used when Jesus uses it, because even in this specific prophecy, it says in Joel chapter 1, the word of the Lord came unto Joel, and it says, have you ever heard a prophecy like this? Tell it to your children, or tell it of it to your children, let your children tell their children, and their children another generation. So we see at least 3 generations, whereas Jesus said, this generation shall in no wise come to pass till all these things be fulfilled. Joel chapter 2 was appealed to. Blow ye the trumpet in Zion, and sound the alarm in my holy mountain, and let the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord cometh, for it is nigh at hand, a day of darkness and gloominess, and the day of clouds and thick darkness, and the morning spread upon the mountains a great people of strong. There hath not been ever like, neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. Now, the thing of Acts chapter 2 is there are elements from this passage, and albeit that it may be recapitulated in some sense, it may not be sequential, but later on it says, and it shall come to pass afterwards, that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your old men shall dream dreams, and your young men shall dream visions. Now, in Acts chapter 2, this is said to be fulfilled already, but this is what was spoken by the prophet Joel, that is Pentecost, and it shall come to pass in the last days. So that was fulfilled in those last days. And as it continues on, it shall pour upon my servants and upon the handmaids, and on those days I will pour out my spirit, and I will show wonders in heavens and earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke, and the sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood, before the great and terrible day of the Lord come. So Acts chapter 2 has this prophecy in it. It's not indicated in the text whether these other elements, like the sun being turned into darkness and so on, are it's not indicated that they are so far removed from the realization of that prophecy in Pentecost. Now, 40 years might be longer than most people use the terms nigh at hand, but it is much more nigh at hand than thousands and thousands of years. Zephaniah chapter 1, verse 14, the great day of the Lord is near, it hasteth greatly, even the voice of the day of the Lord, mighty man shall cry there bitterly. Now, Bobbo345 is appealing to this verse, and he's assuming that it refers to the end of the eschaton, the end of the world, or something like that. But Bobbo345 must not be aware that Zephaniah is actually pre-exilic. He's probably the last of the pre-exilic prophets, and his prophecy is specifically about the Babylon captivity, which was literally at hand, or very near. Near, it hateth greatly. That is, within even a few decades, the word of the Lord came unto Zephaniah, the son of Cushai, the son of Gedaliah, the son of Amariah, the son of Hezekiah, the days of Josiah, the son of Ammon, king of Judah. There we see it right there. Days of Josiah the king, the son of Ammon, king of Judah. That must mean that it was immediately before the Babylonian captivity and exile. So this was fulfilled long before the first century, before the first advent, before the second coming, or even before these days. Haggai chapter 2, verse 6, for thus said the Lord of hosts, yet once it is a little while, I will shake the heavens and the earth and the sea and the dry land. Now, Hebrews chapter 12 appeals to this, but it uses it in a partial preterist sense. That is, the earth was said to be shaken at the speaking of he who came, that is, Jesus on earth. The earth was said to shake, but the heavens were not shaken yet. Now, the author of Hebrews might be mistaken in how they applied the verse, but that would mean that the author is errant about it. But the allusion is clear in Haggai, yet once. So, even if there is any kind of separation between the shaking of heaven and earth, it cannot be removed by thousands of years. That is so improbable. It is even improbable that it would be divided within a few decades, but it is more likely than having a distinction between thousands and thousands of years. This is purely a partial preterist realization. Few years later would be the eschaton. Obadiah chapter 1, verse 15, for the day of the Lord is near upon all the heathen, as thou hast done, and it shall be done unto thee. Thy reward shall report upon thine own head. Bobbo345 is thinking this is about the eschaton. This is about events way before the first advent of Jesus. This is specifically the whole book. The whole one chapter of it is about Edom. Well, perhaps maybe the last few verses may be about some kind of redemption that may be eschatological. But here we see specifically a judgment. Thus said the Lord concerning Edom, we have heard a rumor from the Lord, the ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise ye, let us rise up against her in battle. So repeatedly we've seen Bobbo345, when he's appealing to these, he must be ignorant about these things, because if he's not, he's presenting them dishonestly, and it shows that he doesn't really have a good grasp of Old Testament prophets when he's appealing to these verses like he's done. And so this, I don't want this to be too harsh of an admonishment, but Bobbo345, you should have something to do. I think you should feel some kind of responsibility to address these issues. If it's a rebuttal or if it's whatever you need to do, I think you should. Don't remove the videos, but if you need to apologize or something to people for using these verses like that, then do that. But as always, grace be to you.